What's up everybody, welcome back. In today's video we're gonna finish up our weapon inventory. We still need to add the ammo inventory and we're gonna make our HUD work, so we have the weapon name and the ammo displayed on the HUD and things like that. So that's really all we're gonna do today. So let's just dive into it, and let me take a quick moment to ask if you like the series, please consider dropping a like. And you're also welcome to join the GameDev Raw Discord, for which the link is in the description down below. So let's just dive into it, shall we? So let's start by setting up our HUD widget. It's actually been a while since we've opened this and we didn't actually do anything exciting in here yet. I didn't even organize the player names yet, so let me quickly do that first. I'm gonna select the player name 0, I right click, and I'm gonna wrap it with a vertical box. There we go. Then I'm going to select the vertical box, right click the vertical box and wrap that with a border. So I'm going to select the border and set it to size to content, and then I'm going to make it black and make it transparent, so something like 0.3 maybe. And then I can simply drag in the other player names in the correct order, so 0, 1, 2 and 3. So that's a little bit better. We also don't have a crosshair yet, so let's just get that out of the way as well. So I'm gonna drag a canvas panel on top of my normal canvas panel, and that's going to be my crosshair. So I'm gonna anchor it to the center of the screen and zero this out. The size I'm gonna use 30 by 30, and then for the alignment it's going to be 0.5, 0.5, so it's actually centered. And then I'm gonna grab an image and drop that into my canvas panel. And I'm going to anchor it to the left center of the canvas panel, and let me resize it as well. So the position is going to be 0, and then the size is going to be 10 by 2.5, something like that. And then we need to align it so it's actually centered. So this one should be 0 and then 0.5 over here. And I'm gonna make this a red image, so all the way up. There we go. Now with this image selected, I'm going to duplicate it and we're going to anchor it to the other side. So let's anchor it to the right center. And then we need to zero it out again. And we want to set the alignment for the first one to 1, so it's pointing inward. And then we're going to do the upper and the lower image as well. So duplicate it again and let's anchor it to the top center, zero it out. And this time we need to swap the size, so it's 2.5 by 10. And then we want to set this to 0.5 and this one to 0. And for the last one, duplicate it again and anchor it to the center bottom. And we need to zero it out again and swap the 0 for the 1. So there we go, there we have our crosshair. Now I'm going to select the canvas panel and I'm going to give it a little bit of an angle so it looks a bit more interesting. And the reason I did it like this is now I can go make the crosshair a variable, and then we can play around with the size of the crosshair without the image of the actual crosshair being stretched. So that's why I use a crosshair like this. So let me put it back to 30. So we're going to keep it like this for now. And now let's add the actual weapon information. So I'm going to grab a new border and that's going to be my weapon info. I'm going to put it at the bottom left of the screen. So let me just rename it quickly. So that's border weapon info. And let me grab my notes so I can look at the sizes and things like that. So I made it 285 by 35, so I'm going to anchor it to the bottom left. And then this is going to be -75 and -75, and the size 285 by 35. And I want the alignment to be 1, 1, so it's nicely in the center of the screen. Now inside here I'm going to drop a horizontal box. And for the first part, I'm going to display the weapon name. So I'm going to grab a border in here. Let me see, border, drop it inside of the vertical box. And we're going to grab some text and drop that on top of the border. Now for the text, we want to make that a variable. So I'm going to give it a proper name, text, weapon display name. and make sure that it's a variable. And let me put a weapon name in here. And for the font, I'm gonna make it italic, so that's typeface italic, and then the size is going to be something like 20. Now let's grab the border and actually make that black again. And give it some alpha so we can see something in here. And now let me check my alignments in my example project. So for the border, that's auto. So we want to select the border, that's auto and fill, so that's good. And then for the weapon display name, we want to set it to center for the alignment vertically. And we want to give it a minimal size, so I'm going to set the minimal desired width over here to 150. So that's going to prevent it from moving around if the weapon name is shorter or longer. And then what we want to do next is grab another border and also drop that inside of our vertical box. And we're going to use this for the ammo. So on top of this border, we're going to drag another horizontal box. And then in there, we're going to drag 3 text items. So let's just drag in one and we're going to duplicate this one. So the first one is going to be for the ammo of the clip. So text ammo clip. And let's make it a variable. I'm going to set it to 0 over here. And then again, make it italic and size 20. So for the minimal desired width, I used 50 for this. So minimal desired width over here, 50. And then we're going to duplicate this. And this one is going to be a little dash in between the clip and the stock. So this actually doesn't need to be a variable, so you can disable that. And then over here, we're going to just enter a dash. And the width I chose for this one was 14. So minimal desired width 14. And then we want to duplicate the clip variable and make sure that it's below the dash, so you can drag it around. And this is going to be our ammo stock. And for the size, I used 55. So minimal desired width 55. And then let's make our borders black. So let me grab this border and this one needs to be black 0.3. And this one is black already. This one is not. And then we need to stretch it out a little bit. So the size is going to be 310. So this is going to be the weapon info. And we're going to make sure that we can actually set the variables in here. So let's compile and let's go to the graph. And we're not going to make this too hard. So I'm actually just going to make a function for each of the variables that we can call and that will update it. So let's start with the weapon name. So let's call this update weapon name. And we can drag in our text weapon display name in here. And from here you can set the text. Set text over here. And we can simply plug it in like this. And then we want this to be a variable. So we can just drag it on top of the node. And that's all we need to do in here. Now you can change the variable name. So weapon display name. And that should be good to go. And let's do the same thing for the clip and the stock. So I'm going to duplicate this one and that's going to be update ammo clip. And we want to set the text for the ammo clip over here. And this time this needs to be an integer. So I'm going to select this, change it into an integer. And that's my ammo clip. And if we drag it on top of the text, it will convert it. And over here, I want to open it and make sure that I disable grouping. So otherwise a little dot will appear after each third number. So I don't want that. So I'm going to disable grouping. And that's done. And for the last one, we can duplicate it again and set our ammo stock. And make sure that we set the correct text over here. So drop your ammo stock onto the setter and you're good to go. So that should be pretty much all we need to do in the HUD. So let's continue in our character. So let's open up our character blueprint, and we want to make sure that we have an array for our ammo variables. So we use the weapon inventory names array over here to store all the weapons in our inventory, and we're going to use an array for the ammo as well, and we're going to make sure that the index for these arrays match. So if we use a weapon inventory index 2, then we pick the ammo in index 2 and those should match up. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new variable in here, and that's called our ammo stock maximum. And this is an array of integers, so integer, and turn it into an array. And we want to duplicate it, and that's going to be our ammo clip max. And then we also need two arrays with the actual variables. So this is the ammo stock. And then duplicate the clip one, and that's our ammo clip. So then we know the maximum value for each clip, and we know the current value for each clip. Now, if we add a weapon to our inventory, we want to create our ammo array. So we're going to disconnect the return node in the server add weapon to inventory function. And in here, we're going to add our ammo. So we're going to grab our weapon row name in here and get a data table row. And we want to use our weapon info table. So in here is the actual ammo information. So we drag off the out row and break our weapon info structure. And then we can simply grab one of these set array element nodes and paste it over here. Now for the index, we can grab that off the input. So we're going to simply plug it in like this. And we want to set our ammo stock maximum array over here. And we want to set it to the value of our ammo stock from the data table. And you want to make sure that it's actually sized to fit. So if we add a new weapon to the inventory, the array will be expanded. So we have the maximum value stored, and we're going to do the same thing for the value that's actually in our clip. So we're going to drag off here again, plug in the index, and we're also going to plug in the ammo stock in here, but we're going to save it in the ammo stock array. And then we need to do the same thing for the clip, so we can pretty much copy both of these. And we need to make sure that we plug in our ammo clip maximum and our ammo clip, and then also connect up the index pins. And for the item, we're going to use the value from the data table again and plug them into both of these. So we have the ammo arrays set up identical to our weapon inventory names array with the same indexes. So that way we can simply use the active weapon index to check our current ammo. So with that out of the way, we can actually kind of test this, I think. So if we simply start a listen server to PlayerPy, that should work. And we should have the name and the ammo counts on screen, maybe, or maybe not. Let me quickly double check what's wrong over here. Okay, nothing is actually wrong. I was just a little bit quick wanting to test this. So we need to call our update HUD functions, and we want to make sure that we actually do that on the local client. So in here we are in a server function, so this runs on the server only. We could choose to add a replicated event that runs on the client from here, but if we go to the event graph, we already have a multicast event to set our weapon cosmetics. So if we use our set weapon cosmetics function over here, this is called from the server as a multicast event, so this executes on all instances of the character. So we can simply disconnect the execution pin over here and check if we are locally controlled. So that way everything that happens behind this branch will only execute on the local player. So in here we can handle our HUD stuff. So we're going to drag off the branch and we're going to check if we are locally controlled. And then we are gonna update our HUD, so we can drag in our in-game HUD and we can simply call the three functions that we created. So update weapon name and plug it in, and we can grab the weapon display name from our data table in here. And then we can also update the clip and the stock, so update ammo clip and update ammo stock. And for these, we want to make sure that we grab the variables from the actual arrays. So that way, if we switch to a weapon, we actually use the current value from our weapon and not the default value from the data table. So we're going to drag in our ammo stock in here. And we're going to get whatever in our active weapon index. So get and drag in our active weapon index. And plug in the result. And do the same thing for the clip over here. So now the HUD should update when we start the game. So let's give this a little go again. And that should take 2 seconds because that's a little delay we added before the server hands out the weapons. So that actually kind of works, only the ammo for the client is not updating, and that's because we forgot to set these arrays to be replicated. So make sure that you set the ammo arrays to be a replicated variable, because they are only set from the server and the server needs to be able to replicate them to the client. So there we go. And now if we test this for the 3rd time, which should be the charm, then it should work for the client as well. So there we go. And if we switch weapon, the name and the actual ammo information does update. But if we shoot or reload, nothing happens yet. So we need to take care of that next. So let's take care of firing the weapon first. So we're going to go to the event graph and we're going to make sure that the server can take a bullet from our clip. So we're going to create a new function over here and I'm going to call this server take bullet from clip. And in here we need the weapon index as an input. So I'm going to give it an input and that's my weapon index and that's an integer. So from here I'm going to create a new local variable and that's my local new clip count. And that's an integer, but it doesn't need to be an array, so let's make sure it's a single variable. Now we're going to drag in a setter over here and we're going to calculate our new clip amount. So we're going to drag in the ammo clip from our current weapon. So we're going to get it from our weapon index. And then from this we're going to subtract 1, so minus 1. And we want to store this into our local new clip count. And then we want to get the ammo clip array in here again, and we're going to use a set array element node. So we're going to set the new clip count, so that needs to be for the weapon index over here, so we can plug that in. And for the item, that's going to be our local new clip count. Plug that in over here as well. And then we need to make sure that we update our HUD. So we're going to add a branch in here. This is a server function. So we're going to make sure that only the server is going to call this. But the server can have a local on, just like a client. So we need to make sure if we are locally controlled or not. So if we are locally controlled and we are the server, then we can simply call our HUD widget. So we can drag in our in-game HUD. Get in-game HUD, and we're gonna update our ammo clip. And again, we need to plug in our local new clip count variable. And if we are a client, we need to make sure that we have a replicated event that we can call, so the client will update the HUD. So let's go to our event graph and we need to create a custom event in here. So custom event, and let's call this something like a client update HUD. And we need to update the clip. And for this event, we want to set it to replicate to run on the owning client. And then we can simply drag in our in-game HUD again and call our update ammo clip function. And we want to make sure that we plug in the variable as a pin over here. And then we can go back to the take bullet from clip function and we simply call that client replicated event. And we want to plug in the local clip count again as the new value. So that's our server take bullet from clip function. And a little side note why I use the local variable in here. So if I would simply plug in the result of this minus pin into here and also into these nodes, then the second time this will call, this will again subtract 1 from it. So every time you fire a bullet, then you will actually take 2 bullets from your clip. So if you use a pure node, every pin that's connected to it will actually make it execute again. So that's why it's wise to save it as a local variable and then use that to plug it into the other nodes. So just a little side note over here. So that's good to go. We have a server take bullet from clip event. So now we can go into our fire event. So let me grab my nodes quickly. And let me search for my fire weapon event. So we have server fire weapon. And right before we do the bullet trace, we're going to grab the server take bullet from clip event. And we're going to first take a bullet from our clip and plug in our active weapon index. And that should be good to go. But now we also want to make sure that we can't actually fire if we do not have any ammo. And I'm going to create a separate function for that as well. So let me grab my notes quickly again. So I'm going to create a new function and call that check ammo. And again, this needs the weapon index as an input. So I'm going to give it an input and that's my weapon index. And I'm also going to give it 2 outputs. And the first one is can fire. That's a boolean. And then we're going to add a second boolean and that's going to be can reload. So I can check both of these bools. So the first thing we want to do is check if we can fire the weapon. So let's just grab a branch in here. And we want to get the ammo for the clip from our current weapon. So drag in our ammo clip array. Let's get a copy of the current weapon index. And we want to make sure that this is greater than 0. So if that's true, then we can actually fire our weapon. And I'm going to create 2 local variables again. So that's my local can fire. That's a boolean. And then local can reload as well. So over here we can set the can fire boolean. So if we have ammo we can fire and if not we cannot. So true over here. And then let's do the reload check right away. So let's add another branch in here. And this time we want to make sure that we actually have ammo in the stock for our current weapon. So if that's true, then we should be able to reload. So we're going to get a copy of our active weapon index over here. And we want to make sure this is greater than 0 again. But we also want to make sure that we actually fired a bullet from the clip. So we're going to grab an end node and then we're going to grab our ammo clip again. And make sure that you plug in the correct index. And we want to make sure that this is smaller than the maximum ammo clip. So we're going to grab a less node, plug this into the end. And we can simply copy and paste this and we need to plug in our ammo clip maximum over here. And connect up the index again. So if we currently have less ammo in the clip than the maximum ammo value and we actually have ammo in our stock, then we should be able to reload. So plug this into the branch and make sure that we set our can reload. So true and false. And then in the return node we can simply plug in our local variables. So can fire and can reload. And we have that out of the way. So if we go back into our event graph over here, we want to add our ammo checks. So first of all, I'm going to check it right before we actually fire, and we set the booleans. So make a little bit of room over here, and the first thing I want to do is check my ammo. Plug it in, not plug it in here because we need a branch. So add a branch in here. And if we can fire, we are going to continue, and we need to make sure that we plug in our active weapon index over here. So really, there we go. And then inside the actual fire loop, we want to add a check again. So right after the delay, if we fired a bullet, we want to make sure that we can fire the next bullet as well. So we're going to drag in our check ammo again. And plug in our active weapon index. Add another branch in here. And if we can fire, we can simply continue. And if it's false, we want to make sure that we plug this into the false setters over here. So we set our is firing and is fire button pressed back to false as well. And then we should be good to go. So I think we added the take bullet from clip, so this should work. So let's just dive into it and let's have a little look. So right now, if I'm firing my weapon, actually one bullet is taken from the clip. And if I switch weapons, that actually seems to work. And if I would switch to the server, that's working as well. And if I go back to my pistol, I should still have 8 rounds in the clip, so it's actually remembering the correct values as well. So that's seems to be working, and now we need to take a look at the reloading. So let's take a look at our reload event. So over here we don't actually have much going on yet, so let's make sure this is working like it should. First of all, we're going to check if we are not currently reloading, and then we want to call our check ammo event. So if this is false, check ammo for the active weapon index. And this will tell us if we can actually reload or not. So grab a branch and plug in the return can reload. So if this is true, then we want to set our is reloading to true, and we can play our reload montage, that's fine. And then we need to create a new function for the server to be able to reload our ammo. So let's create a new function in here and call this server reload ammo. And then first of all, we need to create a local variable in here again. So that's my local reload difference. And that should be an integer over here. So first of all, we need to calculate how many bullets we actually need to put in the clip to fill it up again. So we're going to set our local reload difference to our maximum ammo clip. So drag in maximum ammo clip, get whatever is in our active weapon index. And then we want to subtract the amount of bullets that are left in the clip. So we're going to subtract, and we're going to copy and paste this and get whatever is currently in our clip. So the result of this is the amount of bullets we need to put in the clip to make it full again. So now we want to grab a branch in here, and we want to make sure that we actually have enough ammo to make a full reload. So we're going to grab our ammo stock array and get whatever is in our active weapon index again. And we need to make sure that this is greater than the local reload difference. So drag off here and greater than or equal to, because in that case we can make a full reload. So greater than or equal to local reload difference, plug it into the condition. So if this is true, we can make a full reload. So we're going to grab our ammo clip and we're going to set the array element. And we want to set it for our active weapon index, so we can simply plug that into the index, and the amount is going to be our ammo clip maximum array. So we can simply use the value from the maximum clip array, get a copy of our current weapon index, and the result of this should be the item to plug into the array over here. And after that we need to update our ammo stock, so we can copy the set array element node and make sure that we plug in the ammo stock this time. And we want to set it to the ammo stock for our current weapon, so let's grab our ammo stock array for the active weapon index. And we want to subtract the reload difference from this, because that's the amount of bullets that we put into the clip. So subtract reload difference and plug that in over here. And then the result of this should be whatever is left in our stock. So let me see, we're gonna continue. Let's update the HUD first. So let's add a branch in here. And again, this is a server function, so the server will always call this function, but it can be the local pawn of the server. So we're going to check if we are locally controlled or not. If we are locally controlled, we can simply update our HUD. So we're going to grab our in-game HUD and we're going to update our ammo clip and the ammo stock value. So update ammo clip and update ammo stock. Just like this, and then we want to grab the values from the actual arrays. So let's grab the ammo clip array and let's get whatever is in our active weapon index, and that should be the value on our HUD. And do the same thing for the stock again. So plug in the result and switch it out for the ammo stock array. And now if we are a client, we need to make sure that we replicate this. So for the clip, we already created a replicated event. So we can call the client update HUD clip and plug in the clip value. And we need to create a replicated event for the stock as well. So you could choose to make one event to update both, but I'm just going to use separate events so I can update the clip only if I'm firing. Because I don't always need to update the stock, but that's whatever you prefer. So let's create a custom event again, and this time that's going to be client update HUD stock. And we want to do the same thing as in the other event, so set it to run on the owning client, and then we can drag in our in-game HUD variable and call our update ammo stock. And make sure that we pass on the variable, and then we can call this from our reload event over here. So client update the ammo stock, and plug in the value from the array again, and then we should be good to go over here. So we can grab a return node, and then all we need to do is the other branch if we cannot make a full reload. So over here. And in this case, we can set our ammo clip for the active weapon index. So plug this into the false pin. And this time we cannot make a full reload. So we're going to grab whatever was left in our clip. So our ammo clip for the active weapon index. And we want to add whatever is left in our stock. So that wasn't enough to make a full reload, but there was something left in there because we checked that in our check ammo function. So we're going to add our local reload difference, by the way, because that is the variable over here that we can use. So plug this into the item, and then for the ammo stock we can simply set it to 0. So we're going to grab our ammo stock for the active weapon index, plug it in here. And then we don't have any ammo left, so we're gonna set it to 0 and plug this into the branch, and that should be good. So this is ammo stock, this is ammo clip, this is clip. Yeah, that should be good to go. So this is our server reload event. So now we can go back into the event graph, over here. And we need to make sure that the server will actually call this. Now this is an input event, so this will only execute locally. So this could be either the server or the client. So we need to make a replicated event again if we are a client. So let's create a custom event. And I'm going to call this server reload. That's not the correct spelling, but whatever. So this is replicated to run on server. And this will actually call my server reload ammo function. And then in the input action reload event, I'm going to check if we have authority or not. So if we are the server, we can simply call the server reload ammo function directly. And if not, we need to call the server reload event to replicate it to the server. And this will actually update the HUD as well. So what I'm going to do in here is add a small delay. So the moment when I press the reload button, I want to take like half the length of the reload animation before the ammo is actually put into the weapon. So I'm going to add a delay in here. And I'm going to grab my character reload montage that we have as a variable in here. And from here, I'm going to get the play length. So the length of the montage for reloading. And I'm going to divide this by 2. So halfway during the animation, the ammo will actually be added to the clip. Plug this into the delay and then plug in our has authority node. So I think we should have everything lined up. So let's compile and save and let's check if we can reload. Firing, reloading, and the weapon ammo is actually filling up, so that seems to be working. And let me switch to the server. And also I can fire and I can reload, and the weapon is actually filled up again. So that's working, that's good. Now there we have a little HUD error again, nothing to worry about. There is a little side note I want to mention right now. You can kind of lock up the montages if you start reloading when you are firing, or if you smash some buttons too quickly, right one after another. That has to do with the reload nodes over here. Let me look for one. So over here, for the reload montage, we only set is reloading to false on completed. But if the reload animation isn't completed yet and we fire, the montage will be interrupted, and the is reloading branch will not be set to false, and this will block off some animations. So for now, you could quickly look for all the play montage nodes and plug in the uninterrupted nodes onto the false setters. And then that should fix the issue. We're going to get back to this later to make it actual properly fixed. So don't worry about it right now if you smash a button too quickly and you can't reload or fire anymore. I'm aware of the issue and we're going to tackle that later. So I think we should have everything pretty much set up. There is only one thing left, and that's testing this is standalone. So let's make sure that everything works in a standalone game as well. So first of all, we need to go to our framework shooter game mode, and we need to make sure that we disable our little branch over here that we added to test in Pi. So if you have this added as well, make sure you disconnect this before you actually test in standalone. And then I also want to make sure that my countdown at the start of the map is actually working. So I'm going to reset this to a 3-second delay and compile and save my game mode. And then I also want to open my in-game HUD. And in here for event begin play or construct, I also shortened the countdown to 1 second because that's easier for testing, but right now I just want everything to function like it should. So I'm just going to connect it up the way they should be. And then we have this set for 2 players, net mode standalone, and we actually should launch from the main menu map. So let's give this a go in a standalone game. This takes a little bit longer to load. So there we go. So I'm gonna host one session over here, and then let me change my player name so we can actually see if everything over there is still working as well. So searching for a session, joining. And I'm going to use the seamless travel because right now we can actually test the proper game. So let's start the game. And there we go. So as you can see, the actual ammo is not working, and that's what I wanted to show. So we need to make sure that everything in here is working again, because testing in Pi is fun and all, but in the end you want to make sure that your standalone game functions the way it should, and Pi is just for testing. So we need to make sure that everything in here is actually working. And the main reason for this is that our HUD is not actually a valid variable, and we need to make sure that we fix that. So we can go into our character over here, and in begin play, if we are locally controlled, we actually look for our player controller and get our HUD variable from there. And that's not always working. So what we could do is add a weight in here, but I'm not a huge fan of adding weights for things like this, because if there would be a really bad connection, something might still not be loaded. So how long do you want to wait? So what I'm going to do right here is go into my shooter player controller. And in here we actually have an event on possess, and that happens if the player controller possesses a pawn. And if that happened, we know everything should be valid and we can make our calls. So I'm going to look for my event on possessed or on possess. But there's only one problem with this. This event will only execute on the server, and the HUD is only for local clients. So we need to make sure that we end up on the local player controller again. So we're going to create a custom event and call this something like local set HUD variable. Set HUD variable. And then this needs to be replicated to run on the owning client. So let's grab the replication, run on owning client, and then on possess we want to call this event. So local set HUD variable. And then from here we can simply get our controlled pawn. So controlled pawn, and for the controlled pawn we want to cast it to our character, so that's my Quinn hero character. And from here we can set the HUD variable, so drag off here and set in game HUD. And we want to set it to the variable from our player controller, so we can plug that in over here. And if we set it up like this, that should get rid of the invalid HUD in our standalone game. So with this in place, we can go back to the character and we can actually get rid of this part over here. So disconnect this or just delete it. We don't need it anymore. And we can plug in the true pin directly into our NM blueprint setter and make sure that we disable tick for non-local players. So we want to keep this. So compile and save. And this time if we test in standalone, everything should work. So let's give it a little go again. And yes, this is a little bit tedious, but I just want to make sure that you understand the difference between the Pi and the standalone games as well. So I'm just going to show all of it. So where is my other game window? I can only see one. Oh, there we are. Okay. So again, multiplayer, host game, and change the name of the other player. All of those things working. Let's join the session and let's just dive into another map this time. Why not? Seamless travel enabled, and let's go. And now after 2 seconds, our weapon name and the ammo variables are actually updating and everything is working. If I switch weapons or if I reload, all of the variables are updating, and that should also work for my client. So ammo values are working. If I reload, everything is updating, and if I switch weapon, it's working as well. And you can see the player names on screen. Those things are still working as well. So everything should be good to go in our standalone game. And now we are screwed again if we go back into Pi. So this actually gets pretty annoying. But if we open our shooter game mode and let's just go back to a 1 second testing delay, and let's just plug in our little branch over here again, and quickly dive into the HUD to make sure that my delay at the start of the game is 1 second as well. So graph, disconnect this and plug it into the 1 second before round 1. So if we test this in the selected viewport, then we should have a little issue again. So we want to launch in map 1 and then selected viewport, and everything is crashing. Well, that's freaking awesome. So the thing you want to do is go back into your player controller, and over here, if you launch in Pi, you want to add a little delay before the local HUD set variable. So again, we end up with a delay, yes, but this time this is only for Pi. So everything that's tested in a standalone game is working fine without delays and things like that. And to make sure things are working in Pi, we need to add a little delay, and we can get rid of it in the actual build of the game. So this is not really something I'm worried about, but adding static delays in begin play for the character is not something I would like to do. So finally, I think we got everything covered for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. It got a bit longer than I would like to, but again, I would like to explain everything as well. So decisions. Thanks for watching, everybody. Please leave a like, and I'll be back for more soon.